Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of our program, Money Ki Baat, Suneet ke Saath. I am Mani, she is Suneet, and we have asked our eldest daughter Suranya to join us because we are going to discuss the election of Zoran Mamdani as the mayor of New York, and Suranya studied at New York University for her LLM in law. The program is titled Salaam New York, Mahapaur Mamdani Mubarack.
In our series, Money Ki Baat, Suneet ke saath, except that now we are Suneet and Suranya ke saath.
This is a family discussion, and I'm going to kick it off by quoting to our viewers a very interesting few lines that I obtained from a letter to the editor of the Indian Express on the 7th of November. It's written by one Sri Sanjay Chopra of Mohali. He says, Zoran Mamdani's election as New York's mayor marks not just a personal milestone, but a generational shift in politics. His rise reflects, he says, a growing yearning for sincerity, empathy, and purpose in public life. At a time when populism and division dominate global discussion, Mamdani's campaign offered an alternative rooted in inclusivity, fairness, and social justice. It represents a clear pushback against politics built on fear, privilege, and exclusion. So now, let's hear what the rest of the family has to say about this assessment. Suneet?
I think it's more than the pushback by Generation Z or whatever you call the youngsters today. When I went to America as a bachelor girl in 1969, I mean, it's like decades ago, there was a witch hunt against Angela Davis. She was a professor in California, I've forgotten which university, but she was self-confessed a communist, and she was a member of the Communist Party in America. And you should have seen the newspaper headlines. There were cases against her, there were all kinds of gali-galoch against her. And look now, Trump has himself announced that we have communist as the mayor or future mayor, when he said it, of New York. So America, I think, Suranya, has come full circle. There is the Trump lobby, the MAGA group, and then there is this, so at least the so-called liberals or the leftists are out in the open and they're showing their strength. They are not being castigated as anti-national, at least not by most of the population of New York.
So what do you have to say?
Actually, I have a similar memory from 30 years later when I was in New York in 97, 98. And while the Palestinian cause for almost everyone in South Asia and even in Europe signals perhaps the first internationally relevant political cause that they take up, as you know, it really came to you as an older teenager. In America, this was not a popular college cause at all, and whereas at NYU there was a small group of I think it was mostly Pakistani origin students. And when I say small, it was really, I don't think there were more than 3 of them who would wear the Palestinian scarf and, talk about it just a bit. It was considered a really far out, sort of thing, and they would always get sidelong glances. And so absolutely, it's not just Mamdani coming out, so strongly on the issue, but it's also the generational shift shows in the way in which American colleges just came out, behind Gaza this time. That's a huge change.
Although, there's another point. Although Mamdani is the son of a Hindu mother, the very well-known filmmaker Meera Nair, and a Muslim father who is a very well-known intellectual in New York, he is of Indian origin and says so. And yet, curiously, neither the Prime Minister directly. Why do you think the Indian establishment is not felicitating an Indian origin young charismatic politician on his remarkable win? What is happening? Why is a part of India not celebrating Mamdani's victory? Any ideas?
Because they're not only not celebrating, they are ruining it. And I suspect that the Prime Minister and his ambassador and his consul general are weeping and wailing.
And Mamdani said in one of his earlier speeches that if Mr. Modi or Netanyahu come to New York.
He didn't mix the two.
Oh.
He accused Modi ji of having supervised murder in Gujarat in 2002. And of course, he also added later that after the International Criminal Court had decreed that Benjamin Netanyahu was a war criminal, that if he became mayor and Netanyahu visited New York, he would have him arrested as per the warrant of the International Criminal Court.
Though I doubt if a mayor can have anyone arrested.
It's an expression of view.
American law.
Let us not move from the point that I was trying to ask. Why is it that India is not as a nation celebrating this remarkable victory which has caused a sensation all over the world, in America, in parts of India, but the Indian establishment is shying away?
Establishment, yes, but the social media is full of Mamdani's victory.
Yeah, absolutely. It's only the regime and its supporters that are not supporting it. The rest of us are absolutely jubilant. And I suspect the main reason is that this is it's a slap in the face to Modi politics, which has been conducted from New York to Delhi for the last 10 years.
Yes, indeed. There was a large Hindu group that declared itself against Mamdani and worked for his opponents. So there is apparently a divide in the Indian community, which is very large in New York, between the Hindutvists and the others, as also a complete division between the Hindutvists and the bulk of the immigrant population of New York,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is a very considerable population.
Yes.
And Mamdani himself has referred to New York as a city of immigrants.
Yes.
Now, in addition to his emphasizing his youth, Mamdani has made a statement in which he says, I am a Muslim, I am a socialist, and I am an immigrant. Now, what I think we should be talking about is each of these 3 points. Do you think, and anyone can come in on this, do you think his being a Muslim and still elected with a plus 50% majority is an indication of Islamophobia, which came up in the wake of 9/11 declining in the United States? Is this an aberration, or does it reflect a trend away from Islamophobia?
Difficult question. Because Islamophobia is one thing, and Trump's open love and maybe even admiration for the current Pakistani establishment is another. So that is also putting Islamophobia, throwing it somewhat out of the window.
Very good point. Absolutely. And I'd say this is not just a trend away from Islamophobia. Islamophobia is dead. The version of it which had been coming from the United States, not just in the wake of 9/11, but even before that, from the Bush wars and from the bombing of those Sudanese camps, which turned out to then be pharmaceutical factories by Clinton. So yes, this is what it's reflecting.
So you think Islamophobia is going down in America while Islamophobia directed against Indian Muslims
Yes.
is actually increasing in India.
In India.
And that you think might explain why the Indian establishment, led by the Indian Prime Minister, is not felicitating this remarkable Indian on his victory in New York.
Also, why should the Prime Minister be bothered about a mayor's election? Whether it's in the US or in Australia or in Islamabad, who cares? Just a mayor.
Well, we celebrate, well, he may be just a mayor. Do you agree with that? That is just a mayor?
No, it's lucky for Modi that it's just a mayor because it gives him this excuse. But we all know that he's very bothered. He's weeping and wailing. I'm telling you, this is an absolute shock. And even those Hindutva NRIs who've been funding the whole Modi thing, are they going to have to go back into their caves? Because as you said, it's all the immigrants against them. And it's also their children against them. We'll come to that.
No, before we come to that, I just want to pursue this a little further. He said he was a Muslim. He then went on to say, I'm a socialist.
He said first, I'm young.
Though that has been said, that we have discussed. I began by saying that he was emphasizing that he was young. But unlike the two of you, I don't want to overemphasize it because I too was young and I've become old. And in a matter of a few years, very few years, Mamdani will not be able to claim he's young because he'll be middle-aged. He's going to cross 40 in 6 years from now. So it is a generational shift, true. But more significantly, I think, is his remark, first, I am a Muslim. And he's later added that I'm proud of it.
Proud of it.
He has not attempted to hide it. His second remark was, I am a socialist. Now, to be a socialist,
Democratic socialist.
he says he's a democratic socialist. But to be a socialist at all, as the mayor of a city which is the world capital of capitalism, it is a city whose economy is dominated by the world's first private trillionaire, Elon Musk, and billionaires like Donald Trump. And of course, Wall Street is synonymous with financial capitalism and with the financing of industry and raw materials for industry. It is the home of free enterprise.
Yes.
How will Mamdani be able as a democratic socialist, and I want to emphasize that, a democratic socialist who has already been described by the President of the US as a communist, how is he going to be able to run this world capital of capitalism?
Well, the billionaires were against Mamdani during his campaign. You know, Elon Musk and others gave millions of dollars to the rival candidate. But now the latest thing I see on social media is that the billionaires are lukewarm. They are not so far outright issuing any statements that we are leaving New York, we are pulling out our finances. That's not happened. And hopefully he'll work it out. He ran his campaign without the billionaires and millionaires' millions. So he'll be able to find a way of running the city.
But that's not the view expressed, for example, by the Economist of London, who have been following, tracking Mamdani's rise, this astonishing rise, and they are saying that while non-conformism in New York might have resulted in his getting elected, once he is in power, if he actually follows socialist policies like freezing rents and so forth, there will be an exodus of capital. Do you think that?
Oh no, look, I mean, can I say something over
Yes,
here?
yes.
America has been a socialist country for a very long time. Okay,
Wow.
this is a completely phony argument, and it's these phony arguments which have actually led to the current crisis in politics that you're witnessing. Okay, but when I was in America, also this debate was always going on about socialism versus capitalism, and I used to think, well, why do you have social security numbers? This was in my time when in 98 we didn't have the Aadhaar and these other things. They have social security numbers, they have benefits, they have subsidized housing, they have unemployment. It's a socialist state.
Unemployment benefits.
Yes, and unemployment both. Look,
Obamacare.
and it's the same in all over Europe. I mean, where they claim that they are this or they. Although I must say, I mean, in the continental Europeans are proudly socialist, but in the UK also there's this big debate about socialism and the free market. But they have the NHS, they have the dole. These are all, and in fact, I would say that socialism is the product of capitalism. Poor societies rely on, they don't have the means for socialism, and so they rely on family and clan and community networks and personal endeavor and values to get along. So that's point number one. Point number two, what is democratic socialism? There's no such thing. There's socialism, there's communism, and there's capitalism.
No, there is democratic socialism because it means that we do not accept authoritarian socialism. We will accept democracy.
There's no such thing as, there is no such phrase. Mamdani started using this because apparently he was a member of a group within the democratic ecosystem called the Social Democrats or something.
Democrats.
Socialists of America, and he knew that he would be questioned on this, and he just preempted it by saying that he's a democratic socialist. Let's look at his actual agenda. What is he? He said three things: that he's going to give free childcare. Okay, you already have all kinds of versions of subsidized and free childcare all over the West because the family unit has broken down and people are not able to raise their children without state help. Number one. Then he's saying that he is going to raise the highest tax slab to the same level as New Jersey across the bridge. Okay. And what was the third one? He's going to freeze the rent. Now that sounds really radical, but apparently New York did have rent suspension. Okay, which is the same. If you're suspending the rent, then you're also the same as freezing it. And the
He's
only
also
difference is-
offered. He's also offered free bus rides and very much faster buses.
Yeah, but their public transport is so cheap in any case that all of this, so,
God,
I mean, it's all, the whole debate about socialism versus the free market is completely phony and irrelevant. And Mamdani calls himself a social democrat to actually cut to the chase and to his real agenda and what he is, in the same way as when people come and ask me what I do, and I just say I'm a housewife. Because you want to move on and you don't want to enter into that whole discussion.
All right, I disagree with you because I remain an unreconstructed socialist, and I believe in democratic socialism because I see it as not the same as authoritarian socialism. But let me move to another very interesting point about New York City. New York City is undoubtedly the world powerhouse of Zionism.
Yes.
And given the fact that there is such a large Jewish community in New York, I was intrigued that in all the boroughs of New York, except Staten Island, Mamdani has won. In every one of the boroughs, which means almost all the precincts. And Staten Island is not where Jews live. They live elsewhere. And they are moderately well off, but they're not necessarily millionaires and billionaires. So does that mean that despite being the world powerhouse of Zionism, a large number of New York Jews voted for Mandani despite his openly saying, championing the Palestinian cause and threatening Netanyahu with arrest as an internationally declared war criminal? What do you think, how do you think a Muslim socialist like Mamdani will treat with the Jews of New York?
Well, look,
And vice versa.
The Jewish people of New York are not the powerhouse of Zionism. The Jewish New Yorkers and Jewish Israelis have been among the most articulate and vociferous opponents of Zionism. If there is a powerhouse of Zionism, it is the Democratic Party of America. Okay, and it is the establishment and the old people, and it is precisely those people who have been thumbed on the nose by, I mean, already the US public was telling them that they've had enough. They don't want to be the proxy for Zionism any longer. And so this is only the culmination of a process that's been going on for the last 2 years, a big change in America. And so this is not going to be an issue at all again.
So we've disposed of his calling himself a Muslim, that this is his being elected as a Muslim is a reflection of the decline of Islamophobia in the United States. His being a socialist is acceptable because socialism of the Western kind,
Yes.
the kind that you see in Europe, in England and in America, is a reflection of prosperity. And as you've said, socialism has come out of capitalism.
It's the New Deal.
Since the New Deal. And the third point is that he is able to get away, even secure Jewish votes, despite championing the Palestinian cause and threatening Netanyahu with arrest. So the third point that he has made, of which he says he's proud, one is, I am a Muslim. Two, I am a democratic socialist. Three, he says, I am an immigrant. Now, America is, of course, the land of settler immigrants. And the Statue of Liberty proclaims that, send me your poor and your deprived, and I will look after them. But that era seems to be over, and we are now entering an era where colored people, non-Christians, are regarded as undesirable immigrants, and immigration policy is designed to reduce drastically the kind of open doors with which America was associated in my time. Do you think Mamdani's election constitutes a pushback against the evolving restrictive immigration policies of the United States?
Well, I think even Mamdani has to think it through, because it's not only in America, but you see it in Germany, you see it in France, that this onrush of immigrants over the last decade has created a very tense social situation. And there's, as it is, America is short of jobs, and then this new rush of immigrants. I don't think it will be so easy for Mamdani to put this issue behind him or overlook it and paper over it. He'll have to think something really deep and radical as to how to deal with the immigrant situation and make it gel with the current socio-economic situation in America.
What she's saying is that he'll have to devise means of dealing with the immigrants as they are in New York and the immigrants that may be coming in the immediate future. But I was asking about immigration policy. The policy of Washington with respect to immigration. I wondered whether Mamdani's election as a self-proclaimed and proud immigrant would affect policy in Washington, or are the forces that are creating this anti-immigrant wave in the United States too powerful for somebody who's only a mayor, not a policy maker in the United States government, to be able to influence?
Well, what do you think?
Well,
It's your show, you've only been asking us.
I think I believe that there is an example being set, which could even be improved upon by Mamdani, of how do you deal with immigrants. Very recently, a relative of ours, Neeraj Kaushal, has written an article which has attained even world attention, in which he has said that immigrant black Africans earn a much higher salary than native black Americans, and that this is causing a rift between the immigrant African and the native black American. So there was such a large black American vote that went to Trump, such a large labor vote that went to Trump, such a large rural vote that went to Trump, that these kinds of people are not happy about immigration of well qualified, particularly people who are taking the best jobs. After all, the Indian immigrants' median income in America is much higher than that of the Americans. So there is the sense that these guys from outside are stealing our jobs, not only in America itself, but also by their growth on the basis of American capital. They are taking away from us jobs that would otherwise be undertaken in the United States. So all this is connected with immigration policy, although immigration policy is mostly by the Trump administration expressed in rather racist terms and covered by color prejudice. So I think if he does a good job of handling the living standards of immigrants in New York without upsetting the older families, that could be, as an example, a major sort of solution or a major example of how issues of immigration may be solved without resorting to very restrictive immigration policies that will hurt America. So there may be, if you like, an indirect impact on immigration policy of a mayor of New York who says that this is a city of immigrants and I'm proud to be an immigrant. But I want now to turn to...
Can I just say?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I follow the alt-right media, and they have in the last few months been increasingly uncomfortable and sometimes come out openly against what these ICE agents are doing in various places. So
What is ICE?
it's their immigration control force, where like they're going in, and America is known worldwide for being over aggressive.
They arrested so many Koreans, South Koreans.
They're putting kids into sacks, putting them out and sending grannies. So the point is that there's actually been a sort of a discomfort with this across the political spectrum in America. And the immigration issue is not only like an economic one, but it's also a one of sentiment and also one of how Americans see themselves. And what I feel from this discussion that I'm seeing in the far right about all of this is that, while they do have this idea that immigrants are taking away their jobs and changing the culture of their nation, they are actually very uncomfortable to see that kind of force being used by Americans against anyone. And so I think that even if the policy doesn't change, I have a feeling that Trump is going to hear this and start softening his tactics. And I think that, this is also what allows, when Mamdani says that he's an immigrant and he's standing there leading as an immigrant, he's also addressing this other emotional issue of, even if it's an illegal immigrant, how you should deal with them.
Whether Trump changes his, softens his policies or not vis-a-vis immigrants, I don't see how he's going to do that. But on the other hand, I see a parallel between, or I hope I'm wrong, between what happened in Delhi when Kejriwal came to power and Mr. Modi and Amit Shah at the center, and how they prevented, that's my point of view, the Kejriwal government from functioning properly. Files were not passed on time, things were held up, finances was a problem. At every stage, there were roadblocks for Kejriwal. I hope, because Trump has already said that he'll cut finances for New York. I wonder if the same scenario will follow there, and I hope Mamdani can stand up to this pressure.
On the other hand, there is the interesting phenomenon that while Trump is a disruptor of traditional politics from the right, Mamdani is a disruptor of traditional politics from the left. Do you think there's a connection between Trump disrupting politics and thus opening the way for other disruptors on the other end of the ideological spectrum to also disrupt traditional politics? After all, the Democratic Party in New York refused to endorse the candidate who had won the primary.
But money, that's a big issue.
No, let's get this.
It's all interlinked. The Democratic Party, to what extent have they accepted or changed their mindset to move towards the left? Look at how they treated Bernie Sanders earlier. Are they going to treat Mamdani differently?
No, I don't.
And another.
I don't want to come to that question until we have explored this very interesting idea that Mamdani's rise to the mayoralty was a road opened by Trump's rise to the presidency twice over. Now, what do you think of this?
Well, what she said is absolutely, it's the same thing that, he's a disruptor and that there's a position. So yes, Donald Trump has been the catalyst and sometimes even the agent of these changes that you're seeing, which includes the rise of Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Cortez and the entry and the language that Mamdani is using. And I think that, what is happening, and, interestingly, they said that there's a profile of, young men who had been, who voted for Donald Trump last year. And now the polls are saying that it's that same demographic that has backed Mamdani. So I think that, what the public in a lot of places is telling their political class is that, we want an authentic and real person who's interested in our problems and who can tell us clearly and honestly what he or she stands for. Okay. And what's happened is, especially since the 1980s, is that politics has become far too professionalized. And the whole idea, what is social justice, what is development, what do I need as a citizen, has just become too professionalized with all these NGOs and these multilateral organizations. And people are sick of it, especially because they fail to deliver over and over and over again.
So that brings, I think now logically, the point that you were making, that the Democratic Party to which Mamdani belongs and which he represents until his election in the New York State Assembly, that they have not accepted him.
A part of them has, otherwise he wouldn't have got the nomination in the first place. So the question is this a major shift in the attitude of the Democratic Party? Are the younger elements taking over and pushing out the old status quo types? And to what extent will they be able to continue this? And the bigger question is, not only in politics, not only the Democratic Party, is American society now not afraid of the word communist? Are they now more, all of society, more open to moving towards the left? Is that Islamophobia gone? Will this commuphobia also be going out of the window?
I said, I don't know the answer because I don't know America, but you do.
No, yes to all. People everywhere have rejected in America Islamophobia, and they don't believe in this false division between communism and socialism and market capitalism. But what's happening is that the Democratic Party, the establishment, is digging in, and their mouthpieces in the CNN and all are digging in too. CNN gave such an unfriendly interview to Mamdani just hours before the poll, kept on trying to point out that Obama hadn't given him an endorsement. Yeah. And by the way, interestingly, Obama's camp is hiding behind the same excuse as Modi's camp, which is that they don't endorse mayoral elections. I mean, look, it's the writing's on the wall. Now, if these people are too old to read it, then I'm afraid they're just going to get more crazy people, coming in.
No, whether the senior or more conservative Democrats accept it or not, to what extent is the new wave Democrat going to be able to take over and run the party and change its direction? And to what extent will American society as a whole change?
I think American society can change, but I really doubt that the Democratic Party, which is based on several vested interests,
that's it,
particularly moneyed interests,
that's it,
will actually relinquish power. They may be forced out of power, which is a different matter, but I don't think they're at all happy. I don't think Republicans are happy. I don't think the Democrats are happy. But it does seem as if New Yorkers are happy.
Yes,
and very possibly, given the fact that Mamdani got elected along with a large number of Democrats in various different parts of America, shows that there is at least a desire through generational change for a radical shift in the nature of American society and therefore in the nature of its politics. So if we continue cultivating the old lot by hugging Trump and having Hindus for Trump, I don't think we are making for a sensible foreign policy.
Absolutely.
But that brings me in a way to a key question, which you have started answering by saying that Washington may not cooperate with Mamdani like Modi's central government. Definitely stood in the way of Kejriwal's programs. More substantially, I think, is it at all possible? We saw that we all were so excited, you in particular, by Obama's victory in 2008. His slogan was, "Yes, we can." Yes. And when I came to your home in Gurgaon, I found that you had festooned "Yes, we can" over the doors and the walls and your car. But I think I get the impression that you've been disappointed with Obama since then, because he's turned out to be a very conventional politician whatever his rhetoric might have indicated, is it possible that this Obama syndrome will overtake Mamdani, the candidate, after he becomes Mamdani, the mayor?
Also, Suranya, that is not the only question. Will Mamdani become Kejriwal and fall within a few years?
Well, I mean, firstly, I want to say that I have warmed to Obama since in the last few years. And, he really has been doing whatever he can and speaking out much more than is conventional for an ex-US president. However, the point is not whether Mamdani turns out to be another Obama. And I mean, the point is that people in the US are now willing to vote for a Muslim candidate if they can be convinced by him. So if Mamdani is not able to deliver, it'll be someone else. We're looking at it the wrong way. So what is a politician going to do? A politician is like a woman. You're only as attractive as you are, and it's in the eye of the beholder. So if Mamdani or even Obama failed, it was because the public didn't let them succeed on the agenda that they were inspired by. But what this election has decisively shown, he's won in every borough of New York except for Staten Island. He was challenged, and although there have been other Muslim, members of Congress and the House of Representatives and all of that, he was challenged for being a Muslim and he won. He was challenged for being, pro-Palestine and he won. He was challenged for being an immigrant and he won. I mean, so, this is.
He was challenged for being a socialist and he won.
Yes, he was challenged for being a socialist and he won. So, I mean, this is reflects a sea change in the way in which Americans are thinking about all of these issues. And that is here to stay. So this is a great moment, and the greatest thing of all is that he has shown the hollowness and the feet of clay of Indian foreign policy and the Hindutva politics. He's given it a slap in the face, and the icing on the cake was his quoting Jawaharlal Nehru. This is a great day for all of us. Thank you.
But alas, I have to cap your enthusiasm by pointing out that since he was not born in the United States, he cannot run for president. However, he is approaching the age at which Richard Nixon became the Vice President of America, and the age at which John F. Kennedy was chosen by Adlai Stevenson to run as his running mate. So is it possible that Mamdani, the mayor, will emerge in the near future by the next election as a very attractive running mate for whoever is going to be running for president? And is it possible that he may, if he doesn't want that, to become the Secretary of State, which is approximately like being Prime Minister in our system? Is it possible that the future for Mamdani is of rising above the mayor's home in New York and becoming a national figure in America?
Look, okay, sorry, Ammi. No, after you.
I think Mamdani is a very remarkable young man. Otherwise, he would not have achieved this much at such a young age. He has many things going for him now. And I think he will rise and continue to rise, whether it happens by the time Trump has to retire and there's the next election in America or later. I think that is inevitable. He will rise.
Look, Mamdani is already an international figure. So, but I believe politics is dead. Okay, it is on the corpse of politics that both Trump and Mamdani have risen.
Traditional politics.
No, all politics is dead. Politics is over. That whole game is over. It's irrelevant. If you want to If you want to erase everything that makes a man or a woman radiant and inspiring, let them become president of the United States or some other country. The whole thing gets managed. And in America, there's so much at stake on just one person. You can't be extraordinary any longer. So it really doesn't matter. These people in of themselves are, irrelevant. The larger point is that, has the mental derangement of Islamophobia in the form that it was manufactured and giving wind beneath the sails through Islamophobia here, is it over? It is. And that's great. That's all we need to be talking about.
Well, that's a great point at which to end this family discussion. You can see that in our family, there are as many views as there are individuals who make up our family. So on behalf of my daughter and my wife and myself, I say namaskar. At the same time, I add Salaam New York or Mahapaur Mamdani Mubarack.
Salam New York.
Salaam Mamdani.